stop focusing only on the positive. Manson explains that by focusing only on the positive, we are essentially reminding and allowing ourselves to fixate on things we don't have and things that we've failed at. The reality is that if you are truly happy, you don't need to remind yourself that you simply are content. Manson's point is that if you're constantly dreaming of something that you don't have or that you aren't, you're just reinforcing your own misery. The key to a good life is not giving a fuck about more. It's giving a fuck about less, giving a fuck about only what is true and immediate and important. Mark's feedback loop from hell. We live in a world today that is saturated by social media and a consumer culture that continuously encourages us to spend more, so we feel better. But this constant need to outdo everyone else is damaging and is essentially what Manson describes as a feedback loop from hell. Manson explains that our need to post our perfect lives on social media has had a negative effect on society. The result is a new generation of people who have anxiety, fear, and guilt, ask because their lives may not be living up to what everyone else posts on Facebook. This leads people to think that their life isn't good enough, clearly. Everyone else is having a better time. The reality is, people only post their so-called highlight reel on Facebook. You're not going to post a picture of yourself in your sweats eating leftovers out of a Tupperware container on a Saturday night, are you? Comparing yourself to only the best parts of someone else's life is obviously going to cause misery. Our crisis is no longer material. It's existential. It's spiritual. We have so much fucking stuff and so many opportunities that we don't even know what to give a fuck about anymore. Manson's point is that we are surrounded by information now. We can't go anywhere without finding a way to compare ourselves to others. What we have now is just a consistent feed of ways to discover that we aren't as good as everyone else or that our lives don't measure up. This is never going to cause happiness, only pain and suffering. The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. Manson's definition of not giving a fuck has the following characteristics. It means being comfortable with being different. If you want to give a fuck about adversity, first you have to give a fuck about something more important than adversity. But whether or not you realize it, you are constantly deciding what to give a fuck about. The power is within you. It's not all about happiness. We often live according to the happiness equations, the concept that if you achieve X goal, then you will be happy, or if you look like I, then you will be happy. It's this constant need for more that actually prevents us from ever being happy. The second you've reached X or I, you've already set yourself the next goal. Therefore, reinforcing the cycle of aiming for happiness but never actually achieving it. This premise, though, is the problem. Happiness is not a solvable equation. Dissatisfaction and unease are inherent parts of human nature, and, as we'll see, necessary components to creating consistent happiness. We need to suffer. Manson explains that suffering is there for a reason. It's actually biologically useful and nature's way to encourage change. If we didn't experience suffering and any dissatisfaction, we would never have to work hard or innovate to survive. The way humans are designed encourages us to be dissatisfied by what we have and believe that only what we don't have will satisfy us. Without this imbalance, humans may have died out. It is the dissatisfaction that encourages us to strive for more, to better ourselves and our species. Life is essentially an endless series of problems. The solution to one problem is merely the creation of the next one. Don't hope for a life without problems. There's no such thing. Instead, hope for a life full of good problems. Problems are inevitable. Manson acknowledges that we are constantly faced with problems with varying degrees of difficulty, and an outcome of actually solving these problems is happiness. But it means that in order to achieve happiness, you actually have to face the problem and do something about it. Just having the problem and ignoring it isn't enough to induce happiness. You have to fix it. Happiness is a constant work in progress, because solving problems is a constant work in progress. The solutions to today's problems will lay the foundation for tomorrow's problems, and so on. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. Choose your struggle. Manson suggests that instead of asking yourself, what do you want to enjoy? You instead need to ask yourself, what pain are you willing to sustain? The point Manson is making is that your life is never going to be pain. Free any route to happiness is going to endure pain and suffering. By choosing what pain you are willing to suffer through will actually help you get somewhere in your life. Choosing a pain and working through it will give you perspective and allow you to grow, adapt, and hopefully thrive. The cycle is never ending, it's constant and never completely pain-free. But the results are worth it. See, it's a never-ending upward spiral. And if you think at any point you're allowed to stop climbing, I'm afraid you're missing the point, because the joy is in the climb itself. Don't be entitled, you won't grow. When people are entitled, what they are actually doing is blatantly ignoring any of their own problems and not making any sacrifices. The result of this is that they never improve their own lives in any way. They never leave a lasting, meaningful impact on someone else's life. By not acknowledging a struggle, they restrict themselves the ability to develop as a person. Manson explains that in order to have a high self-worth, you need to acknowledge the negative parts about your character and realize your imperfections and weaknesses. By accepting that you're bad with money means that you can learn from it and improve upon it. Exceptionalism. Manson explains that in reality, most of us are pretty average at things, whether it be work, sport, or a hobby. And if you are exceptional at one thing, then it's more than likely that you are thoroughly average at other things. That's just the harsh reality. The majority of us don't get to be exceptional, and that's okay. But it's the extremes that get all of the publicity. Having the internet, Google, Facebook, YouTube means that all day, every day, we are flooded with the truly extraordinary, the best of the best, non-stop, yet the vast majority of life is unextraordinary, indeed quite average. It comes back to living in an age flooded with information, social media, news updates, all reporting on the extraordinary few, leaving us feeling below average, insecure, and desperate. The internet has not only freed us by providing instant information, but it's created our own portable personal prison of insecurity, misery, self-doubt. Why? Why? Manson explains that from the moment we are born, it's ingrained in us that we need to be extraordinary at something. We need to find our own calling that we can truly succeed at. Being average or good enough has essentially become the new standard of failure. The fact that this statement is inherently contradictory. After all, if everyone were extraordinary, then by definition, no one would be extraordinary, is missed by most people. In order to be mentally healthy and secure, you need to accept certain truths of life. The fact that no matter what you do in your life, you're unlikely to make a real impact in the world, you're likely to only ever be average, and that the majority of your life will be bland, boring, and mundane. You need to accept this and accept that it's okay. Manson explains that once you accept this, you will be relieving yourself of the pressure to succeed, and once this pressure has gone, you will feel happier, more vibrant, and more alive. It will leave room for you to appreciate the simple things in life, friendships and relationships, your favorite hobbies, or just walking down the street on a cold but sunny winter's day. The ordinary things will start to stand out in your life, and you'll be able to realize that they are what really matters. That's what you need to care about. Find value in suffering. What is objectively true about your situation is not as important as how you come to see the situation, how you choose to measure it and value it. Problems may be inevitable, but the meaning of each problem is not. We get to control what our problems mean based on how we choose to think about them, the standard by which we choose to measure them. Values. Manson identifies the following as shitty values. These are values that you should not be prioritizing in your life. Pleasure. Material success. Always being right. Staying positive. Manson considers good values to be reality, based, socially constructive, achieved internally, immediately controllable. An example of a good value is honesty. It's completely within your control. It's reality-based and has benefit to others. Bad values, on the other hand, are superstitions, socially destructive, not immediate or controllable and reliant on external events. An example of a bad value is the desire to be popular. Popularity is out of your own control and is socially destructive. It breaks people down rather than building them up.